billion years for it to go away by half. So those technologies, again, could be used to ameliorate what's going on in Japan right now. They could have been used at 3 Mile Island. They certainly could have been used at Chernobyl, and they were not. Because if we had access to those technologies, we get access to the whole ball of wax, as we say over here, and then we become their equals, and they cannot allow that. Ergo, we're being kept down on the farm in this transition until we can be moved aside for their plan for the future of their version of humanity. I mean, this is very scary and awesome stuff, and if I didn't have some good news at the end of this, I wouldn't even be talking like this.
What is some of the good news, Richard?
Well, the good news is that unbeknownst to them, the banksters quietly took their knowledge and developed in secret laboratories, black ops, weapons labs and whatever, equivalent technologies in physics, and that's why we're at war, because our guys, the guys that run us on Earth, the banksters, in fact, and you can call them the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds, you know, those cliched names, but they, in fact, are now at war with these guys out there, and that's why you're seeing in our model all the bizarre things going on around the planet, because we're in a secret war where none of the protagonists want the slaves, meaning all the rest of us, to know we're at war for the first time in history. We're in a war that we're not supposed to know about. And all we're hearing is like you're in the jungle in the middle of the night, right? And you're gathered around your little fire, and you're, roasting your roast pig over the spit or something, and you hear these big booms and thumping around in the darkness, and you have no idea what's out there. You just know that you don't want to get involved with it because it's a lot bigger than you are and probably a lot nastier, and you wouldn't come off very well. Well, the human race is like that. We're seeing all these weird things going on. They're being covered on the news as one thing when in fact they're merely the tip of the iceberg in terms of the secret conflict, the secret competition going on between the guys who would be our masters and the guys who are their masters, and they're fighting it out, and we're not supposed to know, which is why there have been no horrific cities decimated or millions of people killed in one instant. The closest we came, I think, to that kind of awful horror was the earthquake in Haiti, which in an instant, a few minutes, killed 200,000 people just days after the appearance of this incredible Norway spiral up over the northern climes of Russia and Sweden and Finland, which was a signal just before President Obama was to receive his Nobel Prize that, in fact, he was to do their bidding and not what his own agenda might be, whatever that is. And I think we can see modern history reaching a major turning point on the morning of December 9th, 2009, when that spiral appeared over the northern polar regions of Norway and Sweden and Russia and Finland, and things dramatically changed after that.
The tsunami in Japan here, many people are speculating now, obviously, as they always do after some kind of catastrophe, that there is advanced technology involved. HAARP obviously always comes up in this one. I've been looking at the sun, though, 2 X-class flares very shortly before that. Right now, currently as we speak, we have a so-called supermoon happening, and we could even be looking at more earthquakes and other interesting events happening as well. Could it be that they are also utilizing certain natural energies because of solar flares and these incredible proximities of the moon to the Earth, or is it a technology altogether? Is the HAARP behind the tsunami in Japan, do you think, Richard?
Well, the honest answer is I don't know. I'm looking at data. It's very hard to come by. But one of the things that really is intriguing to me is why the Japanese government, which is a very sophisticated government. I mean, Japan has been with us for hundreds, if not thousands of years in one form or another, right? And they live on an island which is constantly beset by earthquakes, right?
Yeah.
How could they have been caught so flat-footed, again, an expression we use over here, and be reacting in such a, frankly, unprofessional manner?
I don't understand it either. It's very strange.
Unless they are encountering forces and indicators that are baffling to them, or they are under some kind of constraints that you will allow this catastrophe to unfold because it needs to make a major impression on decision makers and policy makers on this planet, that if you don't do exactly what we say, we will eliminate you, we will destroy you, and this is our demonstration of our capability to do exactly what we say.
There was an Israeli security firm actually in charge of the Japanese nuclear facility prior to the disaster, a year and a half ago, before, or something like that. They put in a safety system and things like that. I'm not saying that they are solely responsible for this, but you know, who do you think would allow, if anything, a disaster like this to happen, if this was meant to happen in that sense? Or again, are we looking at a fluke kind of situation where one thing just unfolded after the other? But just as you said, Richard, why wouldn't they be prepared or have better equipment in place? It's an earthquake-rich country, a zone.
Well, what's even more baffling is people say, "Oh, the Japanese are independent and reliant." Well, they're not. The Japanese are very dependent on each other, and they live on a very tiny island. They import 100% of their oil. They have no oil. 30% of their energy needs are met by nuclear power, but this is very old nuclear power. I mean, these plants were built by GE back in the 60s. They're like Mark I. They're the first generation of nuclear reactors that were deployed commercially on this planet. And the idea that they wouldn't, when they to even anticipate, given that they can look at the statistics just like we can and see the rising number of earthquakes. Have you looked at any USG charts over the last month or two at how many earthquakes, big earthquakes, we've had in the Pacific in the last year? Mm-hmm. There's an extraordinary number. I mean, 6.0 earthquakes now are routine in the Pacific. It never used to be like that. So you have this rising background of nature. Remember, these are natural cycles. Under that cover of a natural background, you can hide all kinds of mischief and pass it off as just an accident due to the forces of nature. You know, that you can't box with God is another expression one could use. But I'm finding the post-catastrophe reactions so bizarre because they don't match the people who I know have the expertise and the organizational talent to, if they don't have, necessary resources at home, they call on help. We live now in an international climate where when you have a disaster, the whole world pitches in and helps, right?
Yeah.
That has not happened in Japan. Why not?
Yeah.
I think it's because somebody's been told, don't do that. Look, I am grasping, like everyone else, at some kind of rational explanation for the irrational.
Yeah.
Why would you build a nuclear plant in an earthquake zone at the edge of the ocean, basically on the shore, with a lousy 25-foot high wall to prevent a tsunami from sweeping you back into the ocean, when you know you live in a place for thousands of years that has had earthquakes? And if you look at the USGS data or your own geological scientific people, you can see that major earthquakes have been increasing for decades, monotonically, very predictably, and it's only a matter of time until a big one hits close to you and you have a huge tsunami roll ashore and do exactly what was done.
Yeah.
This is not rocket science. This is not magic. This is so predictable, and yet they've done nothing. Have they done nothing to prevent it as they were told to do nothing?
They've been even making it worse because the Fukushima plant had actually kept over 40 years of spent nuclear rods underneath the plant. So I think someone mentioned a number of about 600,000 spent fuel rods might potentially be radiating out as we speak, because again they barely can get close to these damaged reactors. I think 4 in total now have been damaged. So we have no idea of how much is getting out there, Richard.
What's interesting is we're not given accurate numbers. We don't have an accurate survey. We don't even have cutaway drawings of what the plant looks like. We don't have, independent readings of the radiation. We are literally living in a controlled disaster unfolding, and that's not even counting the horrors of the earthquake, which has killed untold thousands of people, and then the tsunami, which drowned those that managed to survive. I mean, this is a triple whammy. and it's not being responded to in the way that other disasters have been responded to in the past. And I think, again, this is merely a speculation because I don't have hard data yet, but it fits to me the model that, yes, we're involved in a secret space war between humanity here on Earth and whoever our masters are out there who have evolved off Earth, as Dolan says, in the last 60 years, into this stunning breakaway civilization, and we are being basically blackmailed into staying here and minding our P's and Q's and doing exactly what they say. And if anybody gets out of line, they can use this as an example of, see, this is what we will do to you, and it's only a tenth, a thousandth of what we can do, so you don't question.
It's very strange, again, just what the point you bring up about how either the international community is prevented from helping out here in Japan in one sense or another. I mean, look at how quickly they were ready and willing to intervene in the internal affairs of Libya now. That wasn't any problem. But here in Japan, where there is potentially the entire population of the northern hemisphere is at risk. It's crazy.
Well, I have heard numbers quoted, something like 1,700 metric tons of radioactive rods, nuclear fuel rods that are stored in these ponds, waiting for when they can be transported to some kind of permanent storage off-site. And because these reactors were the first generation of nuclear reactors that General Electric built back in the 60s and 70s, they have to store those rods on-site in a swimming pool, and they put them on the upper floors of the same buildings that are built around the reactors. Yeah. So if a catastrophe comes along and wipes out your reactor, it also wipes out your capabilities to keep those spent fuel rods cool, as we are seeing. I mean, this is like a perfectly scripted disaster. Perfectly scripted. It's awesome to watch. It's painful to watch. And the only ray of hope that I think I can offer is that I think our guys have some secret technology that they are now using to ameliorate it, because by my calculations, we all should be living now under the same kind of disasters we had at Chernobyl. And the fact that we're not, the fact that even specialists are saying on network television, there are things going on here that we can't understand, it's not going the way we would think, tells me that maybe we are actually quietly using some secret technology to ameliorate the radioactivity, because we are not going to go peacefully as our masters want us to. We are fighting back. Yeah. But no one is allowed to know that we're fighting back, which, of course, is what we're going to be discussing at the conference in detail in a couple weeks in Amsterdam at this very important secret space program conference. It's a very beautiful venue, very modern, very, it's got excellent audio visual. We're going to be presenting some pretty amazing images. And I'm really thinking that this conference could become a watershed to where we coherently draw attention to the real problems of as we approach 2012.
Absolutely. I mean, you obviously have been detailing many, fascinating aspects in terms of the extraterrestrial, in some cases, as far as we know, artifacts in our solar system, possibly beyond as well. In this particular situation, when we have these different factions fighting a human, possibly then branch as well, that is off-world already out there in space, are we alone in this situation? Do you think that there's others out there, Richard, watching and what is unfolding and happening here at the moment?
Now that makes for a very important question. Is it just us and them, or are there other players on the stage? And my provisional answer is yes, there are other players. I don't know how deeply they're involved. I have some suspicions. I will be laying those out with the marginal evidence we have to support those positions at the conference. But there is so much uncertainty. I mean, this whole topic of discussion is shrouded in the same kind of ambiguity and mystery that the problems at the Fukushima plant seem to be surrounded by. It's like we should know more, and we don't, and then the question is, why don't we? Well, obviously, because some people don't want us to know. And if they don't want us to know, it says to me there are things behind the scenes, political things, that they really don't want us to know, and that's why they're trying to keep us in the dark.
And how much do you think that this other, this breakaway civilization have uncovered in terms of this? I mean, could it be also that at this point that they have found certain things out there which have also caught their attention enough to set up another program, another project in order to try to detail some of the things that have been happening probably millions and millions of years ago in our own solar system, Richard?
I think you're